What is going on, everybody? Vlad with the Plotting Success podcast, and this is episode 4. Today in the studio, we have a real treat. This guy is a wealth of knowledge. He is an OG flipper and investor here in Vegas. He's done over 1,200 flips. That's right, 1,200 flips. He has a rental portfolio of 87 rentals with a debt ratio of about 30% on them, so a ton of them are paid off. And he is also a big-time real estate broker here in town with a brokerage with 180 agents. So this guy is an absolute killer, big guy on branding. And like I said, super excited to have him in the studio today, Mr. Josh Galindo. Welcome in.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
What a killer intro. Dude, normally I have to hit those like 3 times because I'll butcher them. But you wrote right off.
I practiced a little bit. I mean, I'm super excited to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
I know I've watched you from the side for, quite a long time. And,
Sure.
You've been in the game a long time. So I think you could probably share, a good amount of stuff for anybody starting out and anybody trying to go to the next level. I think it'll be really good. So once again, quick, review on Plotting Success. It's all about strategic, intentional success. I think you've done a really good job of that in your career. Obviously, have gotten this far. Give people a quick kind of background on you. Like I said, you're one of the OG flippers here in Vegas. You've done a lot of different stuff in the real estate space. I guess, how did you first get into the real estate business? How did you get into entrepreneurship? What kind of propelled you into it?
Great question. Thanks for having me. I loved the 2 words that you used. I have to speak to that. You said intentional and strategic. I love both of those. So I'll start with that. Okay. And then you asked, how did I get into the business? How did I get into entrepreneurial space? And I think I'll speak to that one first. So kind of just possessed a tremendous amount of energy from an early age, not just physical energy, but mental energy, the ability to radiate energy. My brain was always thinking, always moving. I was told ADD, ADHD, CPHD, which means central processing hearing disorder, dyslexia, the whole thing. My mom never believed in any of it. So like the schools I was going to, there was a line to take medicine, Ritalin, Adderall. I don't know if Adderall existed back then, but Ritalin for sure was relevant. And so everybody's telling my mom that I should be on Ritalin. My mom was like, nope, we're not buying into it. I don't believe it. And I'm not going to make him believe it. You know what I'm saying? We're just going to figure out how to figure it all out with all those diagnoses. But So I was naturally rebellious. I was naturally against the grain, curious, I don't want to say combative, like just a mean person, but like just always curious. Like, no, explain to me how that worked. No, why do you want me to do that? If you tell me why and it makes sense, I'll do it. And, so I guess combative in that sense. Long story short. And so I didn't fit the form of traditional schooling. And because I didn't fit the form of traditional schooling, I didn't graduate. Now I wasn't a deadbeat dropout. A lot of people, when I say like high school dropout, and it's a good buzzword, but the reality is high school dropout, didn't go to college. In a nutshell, that was more just it wasn't for me. So I said, screw it, I'm going to go into the workforce and start working and save money. When I had enough money, I'd invest that money and then build from there. And that was literally my plan at like 17 and a half when I said I'm done with school. And I didn't have very many credits left. So like, talk about like taking a shot, and college for sure wasn't me. But so I knew I had to go and make it on my own. I wasn't a great employee. And the reality is every structured working environment that I was in, like instantly went to the top of the ladder. And now if I could have kept moving quickly, I probably would have stayed stimulated and I could have maintained that employee space until I became like the CEO or high-level executive at whatever company I was working at. But in those worlds, everything's so slow. It's like, well, we have to wait till the next opening opens up and then we'll let you, apply for that position. I'm like, fuck this. So I knew that there was 2 ways to make money. Trade stocks, AKA, I didn't know enough to be able to speak to it, but this time my brain interpreted, be a stockbroker or get into real estate. Well, I didn't know shit about trading stocks, and I lived in Las Vegas, so I don't know if that was very serving. So, and my mom was an escrow officer,
Okay.
And she has a great story. I mean, there's stories in every direction, depends on where we go. But so I had a general understanding of real estate. So I got into real estate, And I was around a lot of successful people, incredibly, like the cream of the crop commercial guys in Vegas, like the best guys. And they taught me real estate. They were all friends of my mom. And considering my mom was a single mom raising me, a lot of these men took a liking to me. They're like, this kid's got it, but he just needs some fine tuning. He needs some love. He needs some catering, some training, some coaching, et cetera. They all just came to my rescue in a sense, and they were all mentors of mine. And it was big boys like the Ronaldo Taberti, Joe Kennedy, John Yoxon, Joel Lobb, Kay Rouhani. I mean, these are like guys that you make us little house flippers look like peons, but what they did is they taught me that there's two types of real estate. There's realtors that are great salesmen that sell, and their product is real estate, and they sell it really well. That's not Josh Galindo. I understand real estate. I understand how to turn real estate from one type of piece of real estate to another type of piece of real estate using time, energy, and effort, and then create profit. And I get paid that way. I can sell too, but most salesmen, realtors have no clue what I just said there. They don't understand how to take any piece of real estate from point A to B and capitalize on profit. They know how to prospect, build relationships, build trust, so that the consumer will hire them to allow them to represent them on a real estate transaction. Much different than what you and I do. Kind of long-winded, maybe a little off base, but that's a general answer.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's, that's great. That kind of leads into my next question. I was going to say, you got into the real estate space. Did you have mentors that you kind of look up to? And you did.
Yeah.
Why didn't you go the commercial route? If they were all commercial guys.
Great question. So in 2005, I got into real estate, all commercial. And I was assembling land. I was putting together land deals. I was essentially a wholesaler. I would scout the whole city, all the vacant land, have a list of all the owners, go knock on their doors, fly to where they lived in different states. All kinds of crazy shit, dude. This one time, these people would not answer the door if my life depended on it. And so I had my girlfriend act as a flower delivery girl. So I went and bought flowers, and I put my proposal, which was a binder to buy their piece of real estate, inside of a box, wrapped the box, bow tied it, and attached it, put it together with flowers, and then drove my girl to the house, told her to get out, walk to the front door, knock on the door, and they grabbed it and they went inside. And now my binder finally made it inside the house. So like it was that level of like grimy, I got to get, in front of these people type of energy. Anyway, that was the commercial space. And I did that from 2005 to about 2007 and a half. What I didn't like about it was, one, it required partners. And I put together a lot of partners at a young age, in my early 20s. And the market went to shit. So I had to sit down, and I was taught to buy everything cash. So unfortunately, in comparison to a lot of these other big commercial guys who went and borrowed money, they could just let the property go and the bank took it back and they were done with that piece of real estate. Well, most of my stuff, I put together partnerships and we owned them cash. So they could have gone to zero and I still owned it. I had to pay the property taxes. I had to be a part of it. I actually have my last piece of dirt right now in escrow after having bought it in 2005. That's 20 years I own this piece of dirt and I'm selling it for what I paid for it. So I had to have partners. I didn't like having partners, and because I had to go and talk to all of them and tell them, hey guys, the money you gave me, it's half at best. And that was a really dreadful, lot of guilt, lot of shame feeling. I was like, I don't want to play that game anymore. The other thing I didn't like was that deals only come and go every 4 to 6 months. You only get paid every 4 to 6 months. Sometimes you don't get paid for 2 years in commercial. Now, I love flipping homes. My best year was 123 homes. I got paid twice a week. Like, there's no better way to build anything than if you have predictable income. And I didn't like the unpredictability. And as you start to learn my character, a lot of it was rooted in, I just didn't like unpredictability, lack of control. I wanted to be empowered and in control. Okay. And so commercial for me was not that game. And then the market crashed in 2008. And I didn't have enough money to hold out. Now, the guys that I was in bed with, they were all loaded. They could go on vacation. They could clam up. They could pull back. Well, me, I'm like, I was a brand new kid in the game. So I had to go and reinvent myself. And I basically applied all of the lessons I had learned about commercial investing and land and return on investment, time value of money, all of these good financial terms. And I went and applied them to housing. And I loved it because I could buy one house all by myself, be in charge of that investment, sell that investment, collect all of the profit and or lose. But if I lost, I got to take my loss and fold it up and put it in my back pocket and not tell anybody about it.
Right.
That's what I loved. I didn't like having to be responsible for other people's money. Now, that's not the trajectory of what my career turned into. But in the beginning, those were all the very valuable things that I liked about flipping homes and why I abandoned commercial. I have a bunch of real estate today. I own my building. I would never buy another commercial building. If I was going to go and deploy $3.5 to $5 million worth of capital again, I'd go buy more houses. So I am not a commercial guy. So my point is that I have the luxury, if I wanted to go back and play in the multifamily space or be a commercial broker and borrow a ton of money and have a bunch of investors and all the facade of that world. There's guys out there that are legit ballers, but there's very few of them. The rest are all wannabes backed by banks and investors. They don't actually have any money of their own. I don't want that. I'd rather go and just be the realtor or the broker that I personally believe is absolutely crushing a lot of these other commercial guys that are doing big shit that's flashy, but they don't actually own any of it. All their partners do, or the banks do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's kind of what we talked about a couple of days ago, where it's like, people will just syndicate, but they own like 3%, 5% of, it's all a vanity metric at the end of the day. It's like, whoa, I own, $50 million of real estate. It's like, well, do you really own it? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, we know who makes those claims.
Exactly.
Dude, like Grant Cardone, he's not a billionaire. He's not a billionaire.
Yeah.
He's not. He owns I know he's not a billionaire because he tells you how much he owns well, I mean, gosh.
I haven't dove into his numbers, so I can't.
Well, my concern is that he's got a defamation of character lawsuit going with the owner of T-Mobile or the president of T-Mobile. So I don't want to get in any trouble with Grant Cardone. But if the guy says, I own $4 billion worth of real estate, in order for him to be a billionaire, he would have to own at least $2 billion of that free and clear. That would take him from $1 billion to $2 billion, aka billionaire. So that means that he'd have very little debt and very few partners. And I don't know if that's accurate, but
no, 100%. You got into the single family space. Is that how you started out? What was your first deal like? Was it a condo, townhome, single family? And was it a big prop? Like, was it a win or was it a lesson on that first initial one?
Beautifully said. It was a single family home, Pacific Terrace. Never forget the street name. It's over on Vegas and Buffalo.
Yeah.
2-story, 3-car garage and a pool.
What did you buy it for?
Bought it for, I think, 112 at the auction. It's like 2,500 square feet too. Bro, at the times that I've been in this game, it's like, if I just held all my real estate I bought, I wouldn't even have to work today, But anyway, so I bought it for like 112, and I think I sold it for like 175,000. Actually, I'm pretty sure I sold it for 175,000. And it was a lot of lessons. And what was funny about it was, and I'm kind of going back and forth, at the end of the deal, when I went to go list it and put it on the market, I got an appraisal back at exactly break even. Like, what were the chances? You know what I'm saying? Like, I could get out, first deal, all the money I had left from my commercial days was in this home. And I had some other partners on it, but I won't get into the details on that. But in a nutshell, all of the money I had was in this house. And so I'm sitting there going, do I just get out now? Like, do we just get out? Because what if it gets worse? And I can't afford to lose any money, blah, blah, blah. And it was me and 2 other guys sitting on my patio at my old house, debating if we should spend another $500 on an appraisal. Think how funny that was. That's the level of broke and scarcity that we were operating from. And finally we were like, you know what? Let's just do it. $500. So we went to the buyer and go, and this is at the time when you could just order another appraisal, with the same lender. And we were like, hey, dude, We just wanted to dispute the appraisal, order another appraisal. I don't even remember how it went down. Long story short, got another appraisal back, and then we made like 25 grand. So, which it was right. Yeah, I know. So
good use of the $500.
Yeah, exactly. What a hell of a return on investment. And even that's why I wasn't going to go into that, but I thought it was funny to tap into that on the difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundant mindset. And at that time, that was the space that I was operating from. But so learned a ton of lessons. Bought that house. Basically, it was a vacation home that had flooded. So the people had it totally furnished, had a car in the garage, everything. They opened the door. This is what the neighbors told me. Open the door, see that it had flooded, mold everywhere. Literally closed the door, never made another payment on it again, and left and flew back home. So when I bought it, it was full of everything. So I did, bro, to pinch pennies, garage sale. I was out front selling, lamps and desks and chairs. And I think I made like $800. And then that went towards the renovation. Sold the van in the garage that I didn't think I didn't know anything about the space. So I sold the van for like $500. These two Hispanic gentlemen roll up, friggin' do whatever they did, start the van in 2 seconds to drive it off. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm thinking it's got to get towed, and
you're like,
there's an expense to it.
Dang it.
Yeah, no, they probably went and got a title for it in 2 seconds, out of $5,000 van. Anyway, so that was my first flip. Almost broke even, ended up making money, and learned every lesson in between. Replaster the pool, roof, windows, mold, landscaping, the whole nine. I didn't get like the first one where it was a banger and didn't learn anything.
Right. So. No, that I think that's super valuable. And what year was this? Your first flip?
That was 2008.
2008.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you were buying it when nobody else was buying. You were basically using all your own cash. It was pretty hard probably to get any type of hard money or anything, any financing.
100%. And I have the spreadsheet still. I could pull it up. It's quite comical if to go through the numbers. I remember I had 20,000 in it. This trust fund kid who I kind of knew had 70,000, and then my buddy who grew weed, and had a ton of cash. I think he put like 50 grand into it or whatever it was, but that was our little partnership. So yeah, there was no hard money, and there weren't a lot of buyers, and there were I think I was at the auctions where I bought it, 4th Street. I think it was like opening bid 115, and I was like 115,500. And they were like sold. Like there wasn't. I know. I was like, holy shit! I thought that was gonna go a lot different. But yeah, that was the time.
That's funny.
There was 400 homes a day going. A day, bro. You'd be sitting down there 400 homes, 300 to 400 homes a day.
I can't imagine what it was like to flip at that point. Because right now we're like, so everybody's like, oh, inventory's going up, but 400 homes a day just going active to investors, and people are going to be reselling. It's like the market was flooded.
Yeah, it was and it was not. The reason I couldn't speak to the stats because I wasn't that educated enough at that time to pay attention to stats. I'm a stat guy today, but I wasn't at the time. So a good nugget for your listeners, be a stat guy from the beginning. But what I can speak to is that, you got to think, this house was 3-car garage, 2-story, 2,400 square feet, pool, spa, replastered, semi-renovated. We didn't know how to renovate anything back then. Not in comparison today, like clean, move-in ready, essentially, for $175 on the market. So my point in saying that to you is that the market didn't really flood because even those prices were stupid cheap. Now people just didn't know about the auction unless you were kind of a homegrown investor here. And I only learned about it, even though I was in the commercial space, I only learned about the trustee sale because I fell asleep at my buddy's house. This is when I was young and I would fall asleep at friends' houses. Woke up, went to my car, saw a guy taking a picture of his neighbor's house. I go, why are you taking a picture of his neighbor's house and of my buddy's neighbor's house? And he goes, it's going to the auction today. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he goes, well, there's a location where they sell a whole bunch of houses that are foreclosures. I'm like, do you have a card? He gives me a card. I swear to you, I got my car and drove to where the address was on his card. I didn't even go home. And I roll up, bro. And this is like at a time where it was lack everywhere. 2008, 9, 10, 11, everybody's broke. Nobody's got any money. Everything's for lease. Everything's for sale. Lack. Best word I could use. I roll up to the auction. I thought I walked into a mirage in the middle of the desert. Bro, there was Lamborghinis and Ferraris and choppers, and all these guys are like legit set up. If it's super hot, they have like air-conditioned tents. If it was freezing ass cold, they had propane tanks to stay warm. And they're just, 150,000, boom, sold. 150,000, boom, sold. Like there was this guy Rulon that buy 10 homes a day, spent $1 million a day, every single day. I'm like, I don't even know where this guy gets all this money, but it was a mirage. And so what it did is it opened my eyes back up to a space of abundance. And then it was like, I'm coming back here. I'm going to figure out how to be a part of this. And so I called my buddy. I go, hey, bro, you got any cash sitting around? And he goes, yeah, I do. And then he knew the trust fund kid, and that was how we went down and bought our first house.
And what was that time period from when you were like, wow, I need to come back here? And when you came back and you bought that house, what was that time? How many months or?
Great question. I'm going to tell you it was pretty quick. When I say quick, I'll give you a more defined answer. I'm going to say within 6 weeks, from waking up, seeing this guy out front of my buddy's house to owning that next piece of real estate. I can't imagine it was more than 6 weeks. And you know what the great thing was at that time? Because you got to remember, high school dropout. So I had nothing really to fall back on. I even make a joke about it today. What am I worth today on Las Vegas Boulevard? Let's say I walk in there and I've got all the confidence in the world that I know I possess naturally, my ability to articulate thoughts, I can communicate well, I have natural leadership skills. Like I'm saying in today's format, Josh Galindo, forget Josh Galindo at 20, but Josh Galindo at 40, what am I worth today on the strip? Maybe they put me in a senior management position and I make $82,000 a year, maybe. So I'm like, I might as well take a shot at this real estate thing. That's what people don't get. Like I can always go back to the strip. Always. Might as well take a shot at being my own boss, an entrepreneur, or whatever it is, being in sales. My mom always taught me commission is unlimited income. It's unlimited. You call it commission or profit, it doesn't really make a difference. But if you're an hourly employee, you're capped by the amount of hours you're willing to exchange and, for your time. And anyway, no clue where I was going with that, but
No, 100%. I mean, I think we had to move quick. Yes, you have to move quick.
It's like, dude, I was dying on the vine. Like literally, I had limited money. It was just what I had from making a few bucks in the commercial days, and I had no choice. I didn't have the luxury to go to my buddy's house and sit on his couch and play video games and smoke weed and drink beer and chase girls. It was like, I'm going to be on the streets. Like my mom is a G. My mom she's got a few bucks. I wouldn't say she's loaded by any stretch, but she's always had a few bucks in my world. Now I believe I've exceeded her. I've never actually compared, but I guess I have, where she's at financially. But at that time, she had enough money to bail out Josh, but she didn't roll that way, dude. Like she didn't roll that way. So I didn't have a backup plan is my point. I had to figure it out.
No, 100%. And I think that's a big, for those people that are successful, that's usually the common denominator. That's why I was like, how soon? Because when you see an opportunity, you go and capitalize on the opportunity. If you go and you think about it, for the people that think about it for years, they're like, oh, well, I've thought about getting into real estate. It's like, oh, well, how long have you been thinking about it? Oh, since like 2018. Like, oh, well, 2025. It's like, you got to go right now.
Let me make a quick statement I heard one time. The reason poor people don't capitalize on opportunities is because they think they're all scams.
100%. 100%. You'll notice at any time, and I used to think like that too when I was younger and like a teenager. You'd see stuff online and you're like, oh no way, that's like too good to be true. But a lot of the times it's just too good because you don't know enough about it. That's what it is.
100%.
If you dove into it and you actually learned it, it wouldn't be too good to be true. It'd just be true.
Yep.
So
some guy walked in right now and goes, I got a 2025 Rolls Royce in the parking lot. I'll sell to the first guy who gives me $150,000. Those would be like, it's a scam. There's no way it's a scam. Well, optimists like you and I, we would go, well, let's go do some research. What do we need to look for? Let's Google it. Let's figure out what makes this thing worth $300,000. Okay, well, do you have 75? Yeah, okay, I got 75. Let's partner together. We'll go flip this thing to Vegas Auto Gallery tomorrow. Like that's entrepreneurial thinking, optimistic thinking versus the consumer. I hate to call them consumer. The average Joe will be like, it's a scam. And they're heeing and hawing talking about if it's a scam or not. And you and I already own the car.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to see opportunity, go and capitalize. What do you think is your kind of secret sauce to your success? If you were to pinpoint one single thing that you're like, I know there's a bunch of things, but you're like, this one thing makes Josh Galindo successful.
My one skill set, AKA secret sauce that has contributed to my success 100% is my ability to communicate, my ability to articulate my thoughts and communicate. There's a lot of people, bro, you don't even realize, like at the gym, look around at the gym next time and ask yourself, how many people in here can build a relationship? You and I have exchanged 33 minutes at this moment plus maybe 6 minutes at the gym the other day. So total of 40 minutes, and we've already built a relationship. That's a skill set.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And not everybody, it's easily passed over. Like, oh yeah. No, man, there's a lot of people that don't have the ability to connect quickly, don't have the ability to communicate quickly. Like, we're exchanging so much data between the two of us that we're able to quickly assume whether you're safe or I'm safe. But we can do that this fast. And people that don't have the ability to project energy, use their body language, their tone, articulate thoughts, have a vocabulary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, when it comes to communication, those people can't build relationships quickly. They may be able to, but certainly not quickly. And there's a good chance that they can't. I'll just even go as that far. They're just not great relationship builders.
Would you say that that's something you've always had?
Yes, 100%.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
I'd agree.
That was the energy that I was kind of trying, I had to get into the zone of the podcast zone, but then I was trying to explain in the beginning of this. That was that energy. I just had to have the world kick my ass, kick my teeth in, this guy tell me I'm an idiot, calm down, increase your energy, whatever it was. The world honed me into being able to be a little bit better at using that.
A little bit more structured with the way you do it.
Yeah,
versus goal-oriented versus just like,
I let
everybody about whatever.
He's me. He's an unpolished version of me. I literally laugh at him. I'm like, this kid is, and he's going to get his balls kicked in. He's going to get his teeth kicked in. He's an unpolished version of me, but the world will have to kick his ass, and I'll do my best to try to mold him.
Absolutely.
But the world will naturally kick his ass into gear.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like for me, it's the same thing. It's like I've always been able to get along with people in different environments. So for me, in high school, I played on the football team, so I got along with the football guys, but I was also in all, AP honors courses. So I was with the student council people, and, I was able to shift the way, not change my personality because I was always me, but be able to adapt and talk to people, depending on the room that I was in. So 100%, I feel like you're exactly the same way. We briefly talked about 2008 or 2009 was tough. You ended up, I've seen it on other podcasts. You talk about how looked at your bank account, nothing there, zero, or, whatever was going on.
Yeah.
Were you making already good money at that time, or were you just getting started? I guess, how far up did you go before you went back to zero? And then how fast did you rebuild back up?
So to give you the story going back, and again, for all the idiots that want to waste their time fact checking me, then have at it. But so I'm going to do my best to articulate this. Is one, I didn't have an understanding of any real money back then. Okay. But any money based on perspective could be valuable. My 12-year-old thinks $100 is life-changing money. So with that said, when I got into the commercial space, I think the most amount of money I'd ever made was maybe $140,000. Now it came to me in bigger whacks. And so that's a much different experience. One, it teaches you to be very frugal. And so, when you do get hit with the big whack, it feels a little bit better, versus like having a bunch of credit card debt and then you got to pay it all off and you're back to zero cash wise and you're back to charging credit cards. I guess my point is that, I'd get a $40,000 commission. Well, I didn't have any debt or credit cards or any bullshit I had to clean up because I lived frugally. So to have 40 grand slammed into my bank account felt really good. But it was still only like $100 and some thousand. But what I was being taught at the time was to always own a piece of everything that I do. And they weren't teaching me how to sell real estate. I wasn't at Collier's or Logic going, hey, I'm Josh Galindo. I'm the greatest real estate land guy and broker in town. They were teaching me how to be an investor. So they were teaching me how to go and find undervalued pieces of real estate, put together a partnership and close it, and take a piece of the action through that transaction. AKA the investor put up 100% of the money, they get 90% of the deal, I'd get 10% of the equity in the deal, and maybe a little bump to stay afloat cash-wise. That would squeak out at the end. But essentially, I own 10% of everything that I had done. And so I was taught to own and not have a lot of cash. With all that said, what was happening is on paper, it showed that I was worth about $1 million at like, I have no clue. Let's call it 23. And again, without any perspective, I was like, man, I'm crushing it. I'm worth about $1 million. I got probably 200 grand in the bank. Life's good. So that was the peak of, so to sit here and be like, well, I made $25 million at 23 and I lost it all and I built back. No, I just gave you the real story there. but to me, I thought that was incredible. That was like, for who I was and where I'd come from. And I was very proud of that. So $1 million in equity, net worth is maybe what you want to call it. And then a few $100,000 in the bank. Okay. And then 2008 hits. And the land like went quick, bro. Because it's not like houses. Like houses can still trade based on some perceived value because you may go, oh, I really like those countertops. I'll pay extra. Okay, land, it's only worth what you could do with it.
Right.
Well, as soon as the home builders turned that spigot off, land was worth zero because they weren't buying it. And then commercial wasn't, no one was building strip malls, and I didn't even own that kind of land anyway.
Well, even with the house, if you sell a house, you can strip it down to lumber, and it's made of different things that have value. With land, it was just whatever it is right there.
You're grasping what I'm describing. So it went quick. It was like I was worth $1 million, and I had all this land that I could put a sign in front of, and the market was moving quick. So I had this perception that I could always sell, which these are all great lessons that I use today that so many people weren't using or weren't taught when I was taught them. People are like, well, I could always just refinance. You probably learned that in the last little while. Can't always refinance. If the house is worth less than what you owe on it, you can't just refinance. And what if interest rates move up? Oh, I didn't know interest rates could go up. Yeah, they do. There's so many things. So I always thought I could just sell it. Now you can't always just sell. I learned that lesson then. Anyway, so long story short, I had no logical equity in any of the dirt I owned. It was worth zero. Okay. And then I was bleeding through the cash in the bank. And that was when I essentially was sitting at the end of my couch at my house on 716 Chepstow, my house that I had quit making payments on. Ended up had bought for $330, short sold for $116. And I pull up my bank account. All my lines of credit were maxed out. Credit cards were maxed out. And I look at my bank account, and it's minus 168. Like Bank of America in red, minus 168. And what I probably don't talk enough about, not that I want to, because it's not necessarily something I'm proud of. I'm not disappointed by it. I just don't want to encourage anybody to do anything illegal to recover. But I had no choice but to figure out how to survive. And it was either bankruptcy or grow weed. And my buddy, who I was talking about, who's my weed buddy, rest in peace, he's no longer around today. He taught me how to grow weed. And I never smoked any of it. I actually, to this day, I prefer to be a weed head than a guy that enjoys alcohol, because I hate the hangovers of alcohol. But anyway, so I started growing weed in my upstairs closets where I started, and then it wasn't yielding enough. I was getting like half a pound or 2 pounds or a pound. And then I moved it to a downstairs bedroom. And then I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go big for like 6 months and then shut the whole thing down. And I probably, I don't know, grew 15, 20 pounds.
Wow.
Worth of weed.
Look at that. Josh Galindo, Breaking Bad, baby.
And that's what kept me afloat, and that was the friend's house I stayed the night at, because we helped each other's grows. I'd go to his house and I'd help him build his grow and trim his stuff. And then he'd come to my house. And so what's so funny is I fell asleep at his house, not because I was high, even if I was, no judgment, but I didn't smoke any of the stuff that I grew. And I woke up, went outside, and saw that guy taking a picture of the neighbor's house. And that's what got me into real estate.
Yep. And once again, resourceful. You were like doing that up to that point, and then you saw that. You were like, okay, that's my next move. I've got a little bit. This is, the next level up. I'm gonna move on up.
100%.
Cool, man. So
yes, you said, did I lose a whole bunch? I guess I did, in the way that I just explained it. And to me, it was a lot. And then I had to rebuild, and that was the beginning of the house flipping journey.
That's amazing. And you said you were doing 123 at one point at your peak years, whenever you
my peak years were 123, 118, and 111.
And that was full fix and flips.
Oh yeah,
they're buying it, fully renovating it, and
and it was only me, Casey Ryan, and Ryan Grove, and my wife is a transaction coordinator.
Amazing.
Like, we didn't have a full team. Casey and I were in charge of acquisitions, and then we would help Ryan, but he was in charge of construction, and Casey and I would help where we could.
What did acquisitions look like back then?
MLS. All MLS. The auction still had some life in it, so we'd go down and entertain that if there was something that was worth buying down there. But Casey came into my life as the auction fizzled out. But there was times where I was driving homes. This was before Ryan Grove, because it was me and Casey first. So I'd be driving a house and Casey be at the auction and I'd be like, I'm almost there. I'm trying to get there. Okay, I walked it. Looks like it needs $22,000 in repairs. That's where like, there's so many incredible lessons through my journey of flipping homes I've learned. Like, how did you get so good at guesstimating construction? Well, I had about 30 seconds to determine how much a house needed. I didn't have a due diligence. Like when I got into the game, if I was going to be competitive at the auction, I had to go and walk a house and like sprint through the house, dude. Like I'd crawl through a doggy door. I'd figure out how to pop the French doors. I'd check every window in the house. I had to get in. Learn how to snap a lockbox. If you ever want to know how to do it, you pull a lockbox off and you bang it on the ground as hard as you can. It'll break open.
Don't let the squatters see this. I mean,
but I had to get in.
Right.
Yeah, I'm running around the house. No bullshit. Water heaters here. AC unit looks good. No mold. Mop and glow. Full renovation. Whatever it was. And I'd go, Casey, I think it needs $32,000. And he'd be like, $32,000. And then he'd go, okay, we're trying to make 8% on our money. This will spit out $17,000. Is like, what it was. And that was, we only got 25% of that. We were partners with Tom and Phil, the Boakley's dads. And the split with them was 75 to them, 25% to us, but they would put up 100% of the money. And so we would, when things would get tough, Casey and I, we called it the $4,000 diet. And we would do deals for $4,000. We would buy a house, renovate it, sell a house to make $4,000.
Insane.
And he would get 25% of me. So he would only get a dime. And I'd get $3,000 and I'd have to pay my rent, pay my assistants, pay all my insurance, pay gas, pay everything. That was what forced us. So instead of bitching and complaining about, our splits aren't fair. And, I just don't think it's fair and I should get more money because I'm an entitled fucking loser. It was like, no, I'm going to go work harder. So that was what forced us to go do 123 homes. People ask us, why did you do that kind of volume? We did that kind of volume because we were only making if we made $7,000 on a house, bro, we were like doing backflips in the office. It was exciting. We were, ecstatic. So we had to make it up in volume. So we didn't bitch and complain. We just said, let's go work harder. And that's where Casey and I, we went our separate ways because he's a natural entrepreneur that wants to create his own thing too. But bro, that guy, he's a G. He's my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And I love him in that format, but I also respect him in the business sense. He'd stay up till 2 a.m. looking for deals on the MLS. I'd wake up at 6 looking for deals on the MLS. The MLS you could only sneak a deal by us for 4 hours-ish a night. And we were nonstop scanning. Almost everything we bought was from the MLS.
Insane.
Yeah. Think how much offer writing that is. And this was a time before there was offer writing systems.
You know what I'm saying? Just
it was
templates. Send them out.
Yep. Templates. He'd have to go in there and type it in. And then I was in the game when the auction died before I met Casey, where I'd have to go and fill out, print out, walk over to my investor's office, have him sign, walk back to my office, scan in, save his PDF, and then email.
Insane.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, these fucking
people think it's tough now, huh? Yeah.
They have no clue.
No clue. That's amazing. Let's talk about the rentals. At what point did you start? Because one of the biggest complaints from people that I hear is like, oh man, well, I should have bought more rentals, because it's like, everybody could buy more, but some people buy none.
Yeah.
They just flip and wholesale. And, obviously I know you don't recommend that whatsoever. You need to be buying rentals. And we had this conversation, but at what point did you have that mental, when did you start accumulating rentals for your own personal portfolio?
In the beginning of 15. So essentially I was buying, because you and I possess a really awesome gift, which is the ability to buy real estate at a discounted price and or at its current value, but we know how to make it worth more, one or the other, however you look at it. And so dude, I was buying real estate in 2015 at flipper pricing, so I was buying stuff I was buying condos for $58,000. I bought a townhome for $63,000 one time. Anyway, so here's how this worked. And here's where people get stuck is it's all rooted in short-term pleasure, long-term pain. Basically, a better way to word that. It's all rooted in their naiveness to the beautiful saying of short-term pain, long-term pleasure. Okay. So nobody wants to go get an investor. Everybody wants to use their own money so they get 100% of the profit. Well, what ends up happening is the game will take all your money. It just does. You'll have $100,000 and you'll put it into 3 houses and you'll score out on those 3 houses. Then you go and buy 6 houses. And then all your money's now into 6 flips. And then you score out with those 6. And let's say you have even more money. Well, you don't start stockpiling it. You go and buy 9 flips, and then before you know it, you score out on those and et cetera. You get my point. Your money's always in the game. And so you never have access to cash when an opportunity arises to buy. My biggest gift, because I operate from a tremendous space of humility, knowing that Tom and Phil took a shot on me when I had a reasonable level of skill when it came to house flipping, but certainly not what I possess today. And then giving me $8 million in cash, which is insane. Because like you said earlier, at that time, there was no Kiavi or Lending Home or hard money lenders at reasonable rates. Like, nobody had $8 million. Nobody. That's how I made such a splash. The whole city was like, whoa, who is this guy? Literally, you got to think, like, imagine someone coming out and doing 500 homes today. You'd be like, who is this kid? And he's your age, and he's new and he's quick. He came out of nowhere. Like, my first year of really going volume flipping was the 123 homes.
Wow.
Anyway, okay. My amazing investors, Tom and Phil, you'll hear a lot in my tone. I'm always grateful for the people that have been good to me, and I have no issue vocalizing that. A lot of these idiots, their egos are too big to say that, but mine is not. So that's why I speak that way about these guys, even if I haven't been in business with them for years. Anyway, so Tom and Phil, they were kind enough to give me money, but they had one rule. They said, you cannot flip homes on your own with your own money. Well, at this time, I had been flipping for a little while, and I had about 400,000 saved. And I was kind of like, oh, man, well, why? They're like, well, we don't want you cherry picking. We don't want you grabbing the best one and giving us the dogs. So if you're going to work our money, here's the deal. You can buy as many homes as you want, up to $8 million. Use our warehouse. Use all of our resources. We'll be here to help you where we can, but you can't flip with your own money. And after I got over my opinion of the matter, I said, fuck it, I'll go buy rentals. So literally, like, I don't know, I started flipping with them, built a relationship, probably put about 30 homes in escrow or in the pipeline. So I knew that they were in and they were real. As soon as I felt they were real and the relationship was strong, I literally went down to the auction and I bought 3 single story. I bought a 2-story, 1,620 square foot house in Mountain's Edge for $143,000. 1,600 square foot, 2-story house in Mountain's Edge for $150,000. Single story, 1,800 square foot home-ish, Cheyenne and 215, $150,000. And a house on the east side of town over by Boulder Highway for $150,000. And like sick, like stucco finish, tile roof, 2-car garage, 4 bedrooms, and I deployed all my capital. And then before I knew it, I had $3,000 a month in cash flow because the rents weren't really that high back then. I was like, holy shit, $3,000 a month in cash flow. That pays my car payment, my gas bill, my cell phone bill, my insurance, my wife's car payment. And then I just started doing the math because I love cars. I'm like, dude, I could, and this is at the time when $1,000 was like a great car payment. Now that's not even close. I'm like, I could drive anything I want for the rest of my life as long as I own this piece of real estate cash. Like, you could go buy an S500, I remember, and lease it for $1,000 a month, and I don't have a car payment because the rental pays it. But that was the world teaching me how important cash flow was. And so the greatest thing is those 2 guys telling me I couldn't flip on my own, forcing me to go and deploy my capital because it was just sitting there dying into rental properties, generating that newfound cash flow, AKA freedom. And then me being a little car freak going, oh my gosh, the rest of my life, I can drive any car I want by just owning this one house. Well, I applied that theory to everything. I can drive multiple cars if I have multiple rentals. I can live in the greatest houses if I have rentals that pay the bills. I can do essentially whatever I want within a level of reason, as long as I have rentals. And then I became obsessed with cash flow. And I remember it started with 3, and my wife literally had hives, bro. She was so panicked that I deployed all of our capital. She was like, did not like it. Scared the shit out of her. And then, of course, I kept flipping, rebuilt. I told her I'm just going to do 5 because in her world, cash was king. In my world, I had learned the magic sauce, which was cash flow is king. And I was like, I'm going to buy another one. I said, I'm just going to buy 5. That'll give us $5,000 a month. Our bills are very cheap back then. I'm like, we'll almost be retired. And then I got to 5. It was a little over 5,000 a month. I think our bills at the time were like 7. Long story short, after a little bit of time, essentially I got to a point where my bills were paid. I was generating 7,000 a month in cash flow. My bills were about 7,000 a month, and I was retired at like 26, whatever it was. I don't remember, but and then I was obsessed with buying more rentals. And then what it did is it taught me I don't have to hoard cash. When you have cash flow that pays your bills, you don't need any cash. That's called the paycheck to paycheck life. That's why these people that have solid careers that are like executives at MGM, they don't need money. They don't have any assets. They don't care. They have a contract with MGM that says that they can't be fired, and they make $450,000 a year, and they spend $40,000 of it. So their quads financed, their fucking side-by-sides financed, their second home is financed, they have 3 cars, the vacation home, the list goes on. They can build that life because they have that guaranteed income. Now, it's not a very safe life. I wouldn't do it. But that's the point, is that when you have that kind of cash flow, you can live a big life if you can swing all the payments. So what I understood quickly was how important it was to have cash flow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the important lesson there is, with flipping, a lot of the times we get caught up with, you have to do more and more and more and use our own cash, which I have gotten out of that in the past couple of years. And we use investor money.
Smart.
But you have to be using investor money, because if not, then your cash is always tied up. You can't buy it.
Can't buy anything.
You can't buy anything. Yeah. You just keep on scaling up, and you're broke, rich, broke, rich, broke, rich. And so it's a never ending cycle. So that's super important. A lot of people are going to watch that. No, go ahead.
Are you sure? I'm just going to add one more thing to that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
In time, you get to a point where you have accumulated so many assets that you can get lines of credit against those assets. That's the big thing. So many people don't understand the line of credit game, because I remember asking myself, how am I ever going to buy more real estate if all my money's in real estate? I'd have to sell it. Well, wait, now that's not making sense. Once I understood the line of credit game and got educated on it, now I got like 8 lines of credit. Once I learned the lines of credit game, then I understood that I could be self-funded by using those lines of credit. So now I am self-funded, which through lines of credit with my flips, which means I don't have to sell any of my real estate. I get to use all of my own money. But the point I guess I wanted to bring up there is people probably are going to be left asking themselves, well, when do I ever get to self-funded and get rentals? Well, that's how you get there. Is in the beginning, you have investors. You buy assets. As they build equity, eventually you go get your own lines of credit, and you could slowly weed out the investor and still own your real estate by using lines of credit to
Absolutely.
conduct your business.
We talked at the gym a little bit about it, but I find it really interesting. So you basically go ahead, for anybody that doesn't know, you have these paid off assets. You go and get lines of credit against them. You buy more assets, and then you use your active income to pay down those lines of credits.
Dude, I could give you a hug for you saying that so well.
Okay.
That actually means a lot to me to hear you say that, because that means you listened and you understood it.
I did listen. I thought it was a great idea. And for me, I was like, okay, how can we apply this? Anything that I learned from anybody, I'm always like, how can we apply it? So as soon as I heard that, I was like, ding, 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 ding.
That's it.
I was like, obviously, Josh has 87 rentals, 30% debt. I should probably listen up. And
that's the game.
Yeah.
Not to dismiss what you just said there. That was the game. Is you just start with one. So take one of your assets, unless you have 2 or 3% debt on it. If you have 7% debt, maybe it might make sense to find a way to pay off that 7% debt. But before you do that, obviously make sure that you can go to another bank and get a line of credit on it. Like, some people walk around with $400,000 in the bank and owe $400,000 to Wells Fargo on the rental at 7%. You might as well, because then you're forced to pay that debt service no matter what. You might as well take that $400,000. Now you do this with a grain of salt. Not a financial guy, blah, blah, all that other stuff. You do you. You take that $400,000, you pay off the $400,000 asset, and you go to the bank and you go, I want a line of credit for $400,000. Now you have the Red Bull's making me burp. Excuse me. You pay off the $400,000 asset. You now have a line of credit against that asset for $400,000. Now you have the luxury of being able to pay down that $400,000 with your active income, aka reducing your debt service overhead, increasing your monthly cash flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make sense.
There you go.
You're basically taking you're paying off an asset right now, and then you're able to buy an asset right away, so that you're getting that debt pay down today versus waiting to accumulate that active income and cash flow to buy it later on. You're basically kind of getting an IOU right now to buy it
against
quicker.
your assets.
Exactly. So it's basically you're like having your cake.
So let's just talk about that really quick. How do you start that? You got to start with just one The main thing is, this is where people get so stuck. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy my first rental. I'm like, how much did you make last year? Like, oh, I made $80,000. I'm like, you haven't, and then how much is your first rental going to cost you? How much do you have in the bank? Oh, I have $60,000. What are you going to do with that $60,000? I'm going to put it down on a rental. What's the rental going to cash flow? $200 a month. So you're exchanging $60,000 for $200 a month, and you're not even expert at your game, meaning you can't refill the $60,000 bucket. So what I was getting at there is that people, before they go and buy investment properties, they have got to learn to perfect their active income game. So before you start deploying capital in exchange for limited cash flow, because most people will be financing their rentals, you need to be able to replenish the pot right away. So if you go and deploy $60,000 in exchange for $200 a month, in the next 3 months, you're going to have another $60,000 because you're so good at your active income game. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to buy rentals. But like you said, you didn't start buying rentals until you got good at what you're good at. And that was like 2015, which was years down the line.
Years.
So people sometimes, I feel like they will basically, I guess, they can't flip as much because they took all of that active income and they spent it on a rental or whatever. That rental is not going to make you rich. Well, instead, what you should be doing is finding a way to multiply that money and then going and buying those rentals later on.
The only time you're buying rentals is when you have excess cash sitting in the bank that's doing nothing.
And you can replenish it, like you said.
And you can replenish it once you deploy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned investors were very important for you, for your growth. For anybody that's like, whoa, I don't have any investors. I don't know anybody that's rich and can give me $8 million. How did you meet Tom and Phil?
That's the thing. It's some fucking Momo came on my Instagram, and I never get riled up over comments. And so many people talk so much shit. They make fun of my skinny jeans, my bald head, whatever they want to talk about. This guy comes on with the most wild story on how I got started. He actually went back and deleted it, but I actually responded to this one. And he was so off base. But basically what he did, totally irrelevant, I guess. What he did is he discounted. First, he thought the Tiberti family gave me $20 million. The Tiberti family never gave me $1, but they gave me something worth way more than $1, and it was the knowledge to learn how to run the game. And so that was huge. So hats off to them. Thank you. But he said that they gave me $20 million. And then acted like that was a real treat that you had access to those guys and $20 million. I'm like, first and foremost, if somebody gave me $20 million, which they didn't, to go and flip, it's because I proved to that person I had the skill set to put that money to work. Nobody on the planet has the ability to give a kid $20 million that and not understand how it's going to be used effectively. Does that make sense? Like, you didn't make $20 million in your journey and they give it away to some kid. Like, if you have $20 million that you can give to somebody, you're probably pretty smart. You're probably pretty good judgment of character. You're probably all the above. So the fact that, anyway, so remove all that. Tom and Phil gave me the $8 million and they interviewed me. They fact-checked me. They made me prove to them I could do it. And I didn't get the $8 million wired to my bank account. They gave me access to that money, and I had to flip this home, experience success. Then they allowed me to flip 2 homes, experience success. But your bigger question was, how did I run into these rich guys, right? Well, what I didn't realize I was doing at the time, but it wasn't anything special. It was, you want to do things that have a high cost of entry. Just a simple way to word that. Things that cost a lot to go do, you want to go do those things. Then there's people in that circle that have access to money. You know what I'm saying? But again, even if that's why I don't believe in this, like, your network is your net worth. Like, I know fucking rich people that would make every single house flipper we know look like a peon, including myself. And they're useless to me. They're literally useless to me because they're not going to give me any money. The only thing that I believe being around wealthy people does is you get exposed to their daily habits, and you get to observe their daily habits, and you get to take what you like and ignore what you don't like. and then implement it into your own life and create those types of results. But this whole thing, like these to me, it's all rooted in ego. These like rich guys, they're like, oh, I'm afraid to be friends with people because they want me only for my money. It's like, just don't give them money. Like, are you writing checks to people? It's so weird to me. Anyway, how did I meet Tom and Phil? LVAC locker room. So what it was is you have the general locker and then you have the VIP locker, which is a whopping $350 a month. You divide that by 12 plus your cost of membership. It's like $38 a month. And you get your own VIP locker with a TV and couches and mouthwash and private showers and the whole, it's the greatest deal in the city. That's why I don't believe in Lifetime. Oh, you know. Yeah. You're at LVAC too. Anyway, so I walk in, I see Tom and Phil. Of course, I know who they were because they were on TV. I seen them. They're the twins. They're PTs. They're the pub guys. They flip houses, blah, 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 blah. So I say hi one day, but I don't go, oh my gosh, I know who you are. Hi. Will you give me money? I'm an aspiring real estate investor. No, I just walked up. I go, hi. He goes, hi. I could see him right now saying he didn't entertain me for much. He goes, it was just a simple hi. I understood it as that because I understand to build relationships as you do too. And so 2 weeks later, after seeing him a few times and not saying anything, I say hi again. He goes hi back. And I just showed up and I was in his environment. And before he knew it, he basically maybe one day said, how are you? And I was like, oh my God, this is my opportunity. But I didn't rush into it. I was calm. I read the room. I understood that, you know, this wasn't the space, but I became friends with him. I just started asking Tom questions. Hey, bro, I have this lawsuit I'm in. What do you think I should do? XYZ was his advice. Hey, thanks, Tom. Have a good day. Bye. And you know what ended up happening? He offered me the job. So in time, he learned that I flipped homes. His guy shit the bed. And he called me. He saw me in the locker room. He goes, hey, the guy that I'm working with right now shit the bed. He lost me $180,000 this year or whatever the number was. Are you still flipping houses? Yeah. He goes, do you want to meet with me and my brother and we'll see if you're a fit for us? I was like, oh my God, absolutely. It was a lottery. I hit the lottery. Without those guys, man, I would have found my way to success because that's just the reality of the situation. But the way I found my way to success is with them. So I have to give them credit.
Yep. You do something enough, you get lucky somehow, right?
Yeah.
It's just stuff falls, on your plate and the people are like, oh, well, you got lucky. It's like, well, I put myself in the position so many times and nothing fell in my plate that when it did, that's all you saw. And so that you thought, oh, well, he's just a lucky guy. Lucky me.
I heard a saying recently, there's no such thing as a lucky punch. Like, bro, a lucky punch doesn't exist in a fight. You know, like in a real, UFC fight or something, boxing or whatever. There's no such thing as a lucky punch. Like you built the stamina to stay in the game to be able to throw that punch. You know, even if your eyes were closed, your subconscious was at work at that point. Like, and that came from repetition. That came from practice. There's no such thing as a lucky punch. You don't just swing and accidentally hit something. Like, your intention was to hit. And so to me, yeah, I love to use the saying that I'd rather be lucky than good, but I don't believe in, it's not that I don't believe in luck. I believe that the bulk of my success has come from intentional strategic decisions. Like, seriously, that's why I love those two words, man. Everything I do is intentional. The red hat's intentional. The all black is intentional. The Ferrari is intentional. I don't need multiple cars. You know, when I go to shut this thing down, I'm probably going to have a Ferrari and a Range Rover, and that's it. And probably not even have any nice watches. The only reason I have nice watches is it's a high level of a barrier of entry. So when I was getting my vasectomy, as funny as this is, getting my nuts turned off so I can't have any more kids, sitting there talking shop with the doctor. We're not talking about what he's doing. He sees my watch.
Conversation
I still
started.
know that doctor today. That was like 5 years ago, bro. No, 6 years ago. And it all started because of my watch. He was a watch guy and I'm a watch guy. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's about putting yourself in those positions. You know, I worked hard to buy this watch so that when somebody sees it and they comment on it, it's a conversation starter. That's not luck. Get the fuck out of here.
Strategic, baby. I love it. Intentional and strategic. That kind of goes into my next question. So we talked about, you were an agent, but you're never really an agent. You were just you're a real estate guy, an investor that just happened to be, agent. Yeah. Now you're a broker. You have a brokerage, 200 agents almost.
Yeah.
Why did you go that route? What was kind of did you ever have plans of like, I'm going to open up a 200 agent brokerage? Or at one point you were like, I need to do it because there's a demand for it?
No. So it's day one, the intention was not there to do that. What I did learn, it's accurate, is there's a significant cost to having a brokerage. And having a brokerage the way that I want it. It's just like people are like, well, it's not very expensive to retire. It really isn't. You could probably go buy 5 rentals, $5,000 a month, and live the rest of your life without ever having to work again. Well, it's expensive to retire if you want to live the life I want to live. So yes, you could be a broker and it's not expensive if you rent like an executive suite in some building, but I don't want to live that, or I don't want to come to work that way. I want to be around 30 to 50 people a day. And that's how people walk through my building a day. And I love interacting with humans and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's all expensive. So I quickly learned, because I opened the brokerage to save money as a house flipper, but then I learned that it's expensive. So I was like, I better bring on realtors to help offset some of this overhead. And then just something really magical kind of began to take hold, which was I was attracting just like-minded me's, and male, female, every ethnicity. It was a beautiful thing that was just taking place. And every type of real estate, because it doesn't really matter what type of real estate you do. The desire to win is all rooted in the same space. And that is perseverance, working hard, being intentional, being strategic, all of those things. It doesn't mean like, well, what is your daily routine? That's why I love the daily routine thing. It's like, bro, you could do exactly what I do every day and you're not going to be me. It's much bigger than that. Anyway, so, and then I started to see that I was pretty good at it. I was like, man, I can run a real business. And, cause it's one thing to be a house flipper. It's one that's there, you could call that a business, but it's a light business. And then there's like running a house flipping team where you have an acquisition guy, a disposition guy, a construction manager, a designer, an in-house handyman, an accounting department, and a TC. That's essentially my lineup now. Now I manage all of these people, make sure that they're reporting to a P&L. They actually are held accountable for their income. That's a business, and then as I learned to do that, I was like, okay, I can do this brokerage thing. And, I just enjoyed it, and I'll tell you, if I make this much money, like this much comes from the brokerage.
Yeah, that's what was kind of my next question. Is it profitable, or is it something that it just kind of, it's the other opportunities that it brings as far as interaction and
that's
flipping
a good point.
and business
if you just
and
go
connection?
Raw numbers. I always make this joke because I think it sobers everybody up, especially my agents, when they think I'm getting rich off them, which is sad. Even if I was, it's like, if I'm providing a great service, then you shouldn't care how much money I'm making. But it wouldn't make my car payments how much I make off the brokerage.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
But it does do a lot of other things. It brings in opportunities, as you just described. There's relationship building, there's conversation, there's camaraderie, there's ideating. There's so much fulfillment that is branding that is not rooted in just money. And to me, in my working years from, call it 25 to 45, which is probably where I'm going to go hard. And I'm 40 today, 40 now. I want to be in an environment that I enjoy.
Absolutely.
And that brokerage brings people into my life that I enjoy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If even if it just breaks even to have that office and gym that you have in the office, I feel like it's worth it. It's like to build that environment and you make a little bit of cash on the side from it. It's like phenomenal. I think that's
spot on. Perfect.
That's a W. Last couple questions. You obviously started years ago. What's the biggest mistake that you see new investors making right now? Because like you said, years of experience, you've been through the ups, the downs, the markets. What is a big mistake that you think people are making right now?
There's a lot. There's probably a handful of them. So I'll try to narrow them down. But the first one is not paying attention to data. The fact that so many people are like, first, there's a perception that I'm this big, bad, brave investor, and I'm not. I'm probably the most scared investor in the room. But all of my decision-making is rooted in data. I pay attention to how many homes are on the market every single day. Every single day, I get a list sent to me, and I pay attention. It's going up, it's going up, it's going up. Eventually, the market's going to be saturated. So now it's important to pay attention to that and know that the type of product that I'm buying cannot be run-of-the-mill product. It has to be unique and special, because if there's a lot of it, there's not a lot of demand. There's downward pressure on the pricing. So the product that I intentionally went and bought as I saw inventory going up is all incredibly unique. I have a house on the lake in Desert Shores. I mean, how many of those are there? There's probably one by the time I come on the market in the whole city. a Summerlin single story, 3-car garage with a 14,000 square foot lot. I just built a brand new pool in it. How many of those exist? One. I have the dopest Red Rock renovation about to go live here in the next 3 weeks. How many of those will exist? One. But you get my point, is that paying attention to data. Okay. So data is so important, because I remember when interest rates shot up in the end of 22, 23, beginning of 23, from 2.5% to 8%. Like I got out okay. I lost 160 grand in that swing. There's guys that lost like 800,000. There's guys that lost $1 million. Bro, $1 million loss, you know how long that takes to recover from that? Dude, I walked around my office, I swear to God, with my hands in the air going, I'm the luckiest house flipper in the city. And you know how I dodged that bullet? Was paying attention to data, 10-year treasury, interest rates, and homes on the market. So data.
Some people didn't recover. I mean, I know a lot of people around the country that were doing stuff in Atlanta and Florida's, and they're crushing it. They're buying 20 a month, and then you don't see them anymore. They're gone.
More than I do. Okay. So data. 2, quality. What every house flipper should understand, first of all, the consumer has to understand this rule first, is that if it was up to me, I'd give them a brand new house, but I would be out of business, and then you wouldn't have any opportunity to buy anything, right? Because we'd over-improve a home, make no profit. I'm not going to work for free. So the consumer has to understand that at the deepest levels of my being, I have done my absolute best to provide the most incredible finishes, features, and quality product that I am capable of doing and ensuring I stay in business. And the consumer looks at things through a glass half empty instead of a glass half full mindset. Meaning they walk in and they start going, well, I can't believe they didn't do this or they didn't do that. And they start nitpicking it. And then they call it lipstick on a pig, which is a pretty common term in the flipping business. Okay. But the difference is what I've done on all of my flips, unless it's 800,000 or higher, is I've given you an incredible head start. Think of it that way. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to paint the house. You don't have to do landscaping. You don't have to do cabinets now. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to replace, I don't know, cabinet hardware or some light fixtures you don't like. Okay, that's fine. But I'm giving you a massive head start. Okay. So first things first is, I guess I'm describing that to give sympathy to the people that don't take their flips the whole way. The consumer should understand that they should be grateful that that opportunity exists at that price it exists at, because if they improved it more, the price would go up.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm trying to give a message to the consumer out there. Now, with that said, this message is to the flipper. Deliver the highest quality product you are capable of delivering. What they have to understand, every house flipper, is that $2,500 to $5,000 is the difference between a shitty flip and a good flip, as far as the budget goes. And what they don't also understand is that every single person has worked equally hard to save for their down payment to buy that home, whether they're buying a $300,000 home with a 3.5% down FHA loan, which is rare in our world, but it could be, or the person buying a $3 million home, putting down 10 or 20 or 30%. Every single one of those people have worked hard to put themselves in that position. It is our duty to do our best to deliver them a great quality product. And what does that mean? Give them cabinets above their fridge. Okay. Give them a refrigerator panel so that the side of their fridge isn't just blaring out to the rest of the house. Give them a peninsula or an island so that they can entertain. Give them a pantry so they don't have to store their cereal boxes on top of their refrigerator. Those are some basic things that I'm a big believer in. And I think there's no accidents, because, I didn't set out and go, I'm going to disrupt the whole flipping space by being the highest quality house flipper. I just started looking at the product that existed on the market and was like, I couldn't live with myself if I delivered this product to the consumer. And so I just did what came natural to me. And then what happened is the world started to applaud me for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I might have a brand here. People keep saying the same thing. Your flips are nice. Your flips are nice. I was like, wow, well, I'm going to lean into that feedback instead of run from it. And then I was like, hey guys, my flips are nice. You want to know why? Because all these guys told me that too. And then before I knew it, everybody was like, yeah, Josh's flips are nice. Now it's a different world. The competition is very steep right now. The Boakley flips are perfect. Josh Galindo flips are perfect. So that's who you're competing with. So my point is get good and deliver quality product. The other thing is that it'll put you in a position to be able to ask a premium price. Some people under-improve their flips, and because they've under-improved them, they now can't ask a premium they can't get out of them. So data and quality.
Absolutely.
And appreciating that buyer that worked so hard to be able to buy your home. It's so easy to forget that. Like, that's a human being on the other side of that.
Absolutely.
And then to the consumer, understand that we're also human beings. We're not all big, bad, greedy investors trying to sneak one over on everybody. I've never done that on one house, ever. Never been like, well, let's just hide it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be out of business by now. If I operated by hiding and like cutting corners, I'd be out of business.
Right.
So I don't play that game. I have a real business.
Absolutely. Everybody's trying their best. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. In a few sentences, I guess, what is the legacy that you're trying to build? Like for your family, for the people around you, and what is the legacy that Josh Galindo is trying to build? You've obviously already done a fair share, but like you said, you're going hard the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. What, once you're like, hey, I'm wrapping it up, what's the legacy you're looking at?
So my hope is that when I hang it up, this is what is posted on my Instagram, is it's not quitting if when you quit, you're ahead. And I swear I'll do my last post. And then I'm like, change my password and never check Instagram again. Or start a personal one that's like JG or something. I don't know. Anyway, that would be how I'd like to go out. Because I used to want to make 100 million, 200 million. I want to be worth all this money. I want to have all these crazy things. And then all of my mentors who had all those crazy things, a lot of them aren't even with me anymore. Ronaldo's passed. Rex Jarrett's passed. And a lot of these other guys that are big bad dudes are on their third divorce. Their kids won't talk to them. And the list goes on. And, once you get to a certain amount of money, I won't say because it kind of would expose where I'm at. You kind of can do everything the guy that can do with $100 million. Like, the only thing I can't do is own the private plane and own an island and own a fucking skyscraper in Manhattan. But I can rent an island, I can rent a plane, and I can Airbnb a skyscraper in Manhattan. Like, I can do almost everything a guy that's worth $100 million can go do. And anyway, so I want to quit while I'm ahead.
I like
That's
that.
the main thing, okay?
Retiring in your prime.
Yeah.
Like athletes, when they're 30 years old and they're like, I'm out. I made my money. I made my 200 mil. I'm out.
And it's not that I'm going to sit on a beach for 6 months and drink Coronas, because the reality is that's great for the first 60 days and then you're bored of that. So no, I'm still going to be engaged. I'd love to come on podcasts, hang out with you, walk a flip with you, see what you're up to. I'd love to keep my finger on what you're up to, because you got a lot of years left to build. You got to think, when you're 36, bro, I'm going to be 46, or I'm going to be 50. I'm going to be 50. Because you're 26, right?
I'm about to be 26.
Okay. Yeah, bro, 50. Like, I'm going to be creeping into old man territory. You're going to be a young guy still crushing it.
I mean, I started in end of 2019, 2020. You've been doing it since 2008. So you've got quite a bit of experience on me. So you had a ways to go.
Okay. And then the last thing is I just hope and pray that anybody that I've come in contact with remembers me. And when they're 70 years old, they can go, I remember Josh Galindo taught me this. Because that's how I've got to where I'm at. And how many people?
That's how you view other people.
You've heard me talk about Phil and Tom, Ronaldo, Joe Kennedy, Joel Lobb, John Yoxon.
Yeah, and I could tell that they had a profound impact on you, because obviously you've name dropped them a few times. And if that's what people do for you, then
all I've tried to do is pay it forward, dog. That's it.
Absolutely.
I just one day that if I can have people just go, I remember Josh taught me this lesson. Yeah. And then they implement it. And what they don't realize is it's really a tribute to the people that taught me lessons. Because a lot of lessons that I'm teaching people, I learned from those guys. And those guys aren't even here, but they don't realize that their legacy is living on through me and then through that person. And that is, to me, what legacy is.
Awesome. Awesome. That very well said. And then last question, a lot of people on the podcast, they're always like, give advice to somebody that's just starting out, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit, reframe it. You've obviously had longevity in the business, rentals, everything. Give advice to somebody like me who's 5 years in and wants to go the distance, 15, 20 years in. I'm 25, 26, I better be 26. What advice would you give me or somebody that's 3 to 5 years into the business to how to get, to your level, which is now almost 20 years into the business?
Yeah. That's a cool statement, because I agree. A lot of these guys aren't on day one or even before day one. They're on like year 4 or 5. What I would say is identify. I would lean into a brand. Brand is really powerful. If you like it. If you don't like it, it's just like, you could go buy a Ferrari right now if you wanted to. I'm sure you could. I mean, you'd have to really want it to go do that. So the same thing with brand. You'd have to really want to that life to pursue it. But if you do, then I would lead into brand. And then understand that 80% because the only way that you're going to make real money is if you can replace you. Okay. You got to have 10 of you. What you don't understand, or what I would suspect you don't understand yet, maybe you do have no clue, is that if you go and find 10 yous, exact yous, 100% yous, they're going to be equally as ambitious as you, meaning they're going to gather as much information as they possibly can from you and leave. And you almost can't fault them for that because they're ambitious, just like you. You're ambitious. You want to go create your own thing. So the best thing you could do is know that 100% of you is not what you want. You want 10 people that are 80% of you, because if they were 100% of you, they wouldn't be working for you. And if they do, they won't do it for very long. But there's a total market out there for people that are 80% of you. There's more of those people out there. And learn to manage human beings. The most difficult, I don't stress about the tile guy showing up anymore. I don't stress about if I'm going to lose $8,000 or $25,000 or a house that closes tomorrow that I'm going to lose $83,000 on. I don't even stress about any of that stuff anymore. I stress about people. And so you got to get good at people. So, because then you can replace you. And when you can replace you, that's when your income grows exponentially.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. That was amazing. I know we ran a little bit long, but I think that was super insightful for a lot of people. Obviously, like I said, you've done a tremendous amount of flips and just a crazy business here in town. So I really appreciate it. Where can people find you, and how can they connect with you?
Thank you for the platform, first and foremost, and to hear more of my ways of thinking, to follow me. My handle on all social media platforms is @I am Josh Galindo, GALIN as in Nancy, D as in dog, O, @I am Josh Galindo. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you guys like the podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, we're on there. And that was episode 4. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Josh.
Woo! I know. That was cool, man.
That was good.